everybody. Welcome to the next Big Rush. I am here with Dr. Rebecca Hunter from Forum Energy. I am super excited because they are, I guess, taking the next few steps of this really exciting discovery. High-grade uranium outside of the Athabasca Basin. Pay attention to this because we're going to dive into two very important topics. One is why do I believe in, why, most importantly, because who cares what I think, why Dr. Rebecca Hunter thinks that the Thelon Basin is the new Athabasca Basin, and why you should take notice and focus on Forum Energy and what they're doing, because the kind of grades that they're hitting is just absolutely great. And so without further delay, Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Fabi. It's really nice to be here.
Again, yeah, you're back because we teased it out, and a few months ago we were talking about the potential here, but for a lot of newcomers to the show that have not really heard of Nunavut as, you know, the new place to be for high-grade uranium, what can you tell us about the Thelon Basin, which is where you guys are drilling, and the Athabasca Basin, which we know to be, you know, the old saying is the Saudi Arabia of uranium, where, you know, most of the high grade is located. It's in Canada, very much like Nunavut, and it's gotten all the attention for, I want to say, the last couple of decades. But now there's a new kid on the block with grades, you know, that are super interesting and impossible to ignore. So, Rebecca, what would you say is the thing that makes these two different basins similar? Why do you believe that this is, you know, a great new opportunity going forward?
All right. So that's a really good question. And the big thing, so I just got a cartoon here. I just thought I'd show kind of the unconformity deposit kind of model, just in general. So the thing is, what you need for these types of deposits to form, and which there's really nice high grades and sometimes a very high tonnage, is you need kind of three main things. And so one, you need basically lots of fluid to move uranium. And so what you need to do that is you need some sort of sandstone basin. In this case, the Athabasca, of course, is a big sandstone basin that's in Saskatchewan. And then the Thelon Basin is actually not very far away. It's just up in Nunavut. So Nunavut and the NWT. So Canada's Arctic, it's about 700 kilometers to the north. And again, it's another sandstone basin. So you have that. So you've checked that box. And then the other two things you need fault zones. And so you got these kind of faults where these deposits form, and you also need to have the timing of those faults to kind of happen at the same time. And so the Athabasca and the Thelon Basin are in the same kind of area of the world and the same area of time in the world when you talk about geology. So you've got faults that are there, the same ones in some cases, and then you also have movement on them at the same time. And then, you know, kind of the last thing is you need a trap. So you need the ability to kind of precipitate the uranium. And again, that happens at those faults, at that unconformity. That's what we call it, the unconformity. You got this sandstone basin, you got these older rocks at that contact. You get that trap right at that contact. And then sometimes you get the trap deeper in the basement. Same sort of process, but just that sort of thing. So that's why the Thelon is so exciting, is because there is no other basin in the world of the same size and has all those characteristics. And it's those features that basically precipitate high-grade uranium.
That is super exciting. So basically, geologically, it has the same characteristics, but because it's comparatively underexplored, then you have a lot of the upside of the discovery process.
Exactly. And really it is just that. It just hasn't been explored, you know, just because of the way that the uranium kind of industry goes, you know, and it's easier to kind of stick with where you know. If that basin, if the Thelon Basin was anywhere else in the world, it would be, you know, probably a development center, just because, you know, I think a lot of countries would give to have the Thelon Basin in their backyard.
That is so cool. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy. what have you guys found so far? And if you could touch on the latest development and the latest news that you guys put out, what have you found and how does it prove that you guys are really onto something interesting?
So this summer we got the money and we just really quickly tried to get up there. And so where we wanted to go was our Tatiggaq area. So that's kind of the main mineralized kind of area that we know of so far in the Thelon Basin. And that was an area that we just kind of initially found mineralization when I was working there 10 years ago. And so we basically kind of just tagged into a bit of mineralization in 2010. And then of course, the big Fukushima happened and it all kind of ended. And so we're back. And so we got the money and we wanted to get up here first. So we drilled 4 holes into this Tatiggaq anomaly. And so what I'm showing you here, this anomaly, what I mean by that is this kind of blue area. And that blue area is a gravity anomaly. And it's just a geophysical method that works very well up here to kind of hone into basically clay alteration that's above these deposits. So we know that this whole blue area is prospective. We found mineralization was initially found kind of in the southwest quadrant. So we wanted to get in there again. And so basically the biggest thing we wanted to do is kind of based on the work I did after, we stopped working up there in the last cycle. I did a PhD looking at these deposits. And I came up with the hypothesis that the mineralization was actually kind of a series of stacked sort of lenses. So this is the next section here, I guess, just to show you. I'll kind of go back and forth. But what I kind of hypothesized is that we have, these series of stacked lenses rather than kind of a flat line, maybe just a single mineralized pod. You got all these high-grade lenses. And so what I wanted to do was test that out. And so the first holes that we got in there was to test that. And that's where we got those really good grades. So the 2.25 over 11, so it confirmed the mineralizations there and also confirmed that basically the geometry. So that sort of steep lenses, very similar to what Arrow is, at least in the geometry of it. So these basement systems with these deep lenses. And then the next thing after that is we wanted to step out from there and actually show that the mineralization has continuity. So we got the really good grades. Those types of grades are, very similar to what you can get in the Athabasca. And so the last 2, 3 and 4, the holes that we did a press release a few weeks ago, and the one that just came out basically stepped out 200 meters. And we got 0.4 over 12, 0.4% over 12. And then this last press release that we just released today was just a step out of 150 meters. So again, showing the continuity of this mineralization, we got a 1% over 6 meters. So really good grades. And I guess what the potential here is that one, we have the grades. The next potential is we have the continuity. And so, stepping out 200 meters into this very weakly drilled area. So it just showed a bit of alteration and mineralization. So now we know that mineralization is basically contiguous over that 200 meters. And now we can really expand it. And so one of the things is this whole area that we're kind of exploring for this gravity anomaly is 1.5 kilometers long. And we've only basically got the tip of the iceberg here in the very southwest quadrant. So we've tested kind of 200 meters of that. And we have this whole 1.3 kilometers to keep testing. And so that's what's super exciting, is that now we know that we've got the grades, we know that we have the strike length, and it's just chasing it up. We know that there's mineralization along this, in particular, this structure, which I've called the Tatiggaq fault, and we're going to chase it up. And so now we have all this ability to expand. And so that's kind of where we're sitting at. And then other components of this is that we have kind of subparallel kind of fault zones that are in this gravity anomaly. And the historical holes have hit elevated uranium. So, what we think too is that we can not only chase that actual mineralization that we know, but, it could be that we have mineralization along all these subparallel structures too. And so, the ability to expand this into a significant deposit, essentially.
That is so exciting. And I guess it's proving your lenses model, right?
Yeah, and so that we also know that. So one of the things about this first press release we released, the 2.25/11, that really only tagged into 2 of these lenses. So the whole mineralization kind of body so far now is about 50 meters wide. And so plans going forward will be able to hit that more optimally and actually hit all the lenses that go through there and get an actual true thickness of this ore body, as well as moving along and seeing if it's actually wider. So we don't actually know if it actually is thicker than 50 meters.
So cool. Okay, so we've looked at the similarities and we can sort of gauge what the potential is here. We're looking at the grades, and the grades are like, there's no contest whether these are profitable grades or not at the depth and grade that you're hitting. It absolutely is like top notch, world class, amazing grades. Now, the next question is, what are the next steps going to be? Because I find that your job, it seems to be getting easier, but at the same time, it's getting harder because the potential is so large in the area that you can look at with geophysics and with, different rocks and their characteristics is such that, do you guys step way out and go out into these other zones and start to drill there? Or do you just try to expand, the area that you already have? Or is it about going deeper? Is it about going wider? Is it like, what is the strategy here for what's happening next? And when do you expect these next steps to take place?
Okay, well, it is true. It is easier in some ways and it's harder. So now, I mean, we're going to be chasing it along. So we know that it's fertile. So we'll have to do a bit of systematic drilling, a bit, just because these are small, or I guess small isn't the right word, but just unconformity deposits in general. They're in faults, you can miss them. It's true. Like so you
Because
have
they're
to
so
have a bit of,
concentrated, right? It's
yeah,
high grade because it's
yeah.
all put together.
So you have to kind of keep that in mind and make sure that you're kind of testing in a way that doesn't just, so that you miss stuff. So you want to kind of systematically test to an extent. But essentially, yeah, we'll be stepping out along that fault. We've also done, and one thing I haven't mentioned, and we'll talk about this later in a press release once the data's out, but we did a passive seismic survey as well over the Tatiggaq anomaly. And we're hoping that's going to help image the subsurface to a certain degree, a little bit more. Like the gravity anomaly tells you where to go, and the drill holes also tell you kind of where to go. But hopefully this will give us a bit of a depth. And so then we can actually kind of maybe see the alteration or the different rock units. And anyways, that might be able to target. But we have a fairly big program planned for next year. We'd like to do 10 to 12,000 meters and at least, 9,000 meters or so of drilling to chase up the Tatiggaq anomaly and expand what we have there.
How many holes do you think that's going to yield you?
I think it'll yield us about 30 because they're shallow holes.
Wow.
So that's one of the things. You can get a lot of drilling in because, basically the mineralization so far is only to about 180 meters depth. And so essentially you just get a lot of holes in. But there's another component to all this too, is we don't actually know if there's more mineralization at depth as well, because we kind of only tested to about 250 meters and we're never completely out of the alteration. So that's another thing we'll do this summer, is actually do a few deeper holes just to see if, there's more going on there.
That is so cool. Look, your hit rate is off the charts. So if you get given the chance of drilling 30 holes, I can only imagine, you're going to be here on this channel all the time talking about all the different results because there's going to be a lot, I am sure. Obviously, this is not financial advice. We can't guarantee, anything, and we can't guarantee that, high grade uranium is going to continue to be found. But if past and her experience is anything to go by, then I would definitely, at the very least, add Forum Energy to your watch list and just see what kind of noise they're making in the Thelon Basin. I've been hearing certain things about neighboring interests and areas being staked around you guys' projects, and I think there's a lot of excitement going into Nunavut, especially for this cycle. And high grade is where all the sexiness is. Let's just be honest. I like my US based uranium companies, but they're a completely different play. If you want, explosive upside, then you got to go to Athabasca and now the Thelon Basin as well. Lots of upside. Dr. Rebecca Hunter, any last words that you want to leave new investors and old investors with?
Yeah, I mean, keep us on your watch list. I mean, we're gonna get up there in the summer, and we'll be drilling a bunch more, like Fabi said, and I think we'll have lots of success. And Tatiggaq is just a small part of, like, one part of our story. We have numerous anomalies. We also have another mineralized zone that we'll be targeting too. That was just initially tagged into in the last cycle. And yeah, I mean, I think the sky's the limit here. I think this is definitely where I want to be, and I'm really glad to be up here trying to make more discoveries.
Yeah, we're happy for you, and as a shareholder, I'm happy that these things are happening because it's good for all of us. Thank you so much, and I'll speak to you very soon whenever we have some more news, some more plans about the drilling that's going to definitely happen. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Fabi.